Hey guys, this is Jackson, and in this video I'm going to show you how to set up an Unreal Engine project for indie games in a way that is going to save you a lot of headaches, is going to make your life a lot easier, and is the method that I use to ensure that I can back up all my data, I keep my projects organized, and I have an exit strategy so that I can package them easily and distribute them to Steam. This is a video that's going to be part of a course that I'm currently making, and I'll put some more information about that at the end, but the course is basically a guide for you to finish and publish your first game, so stick around to the end if you want some more info about that. So now, with that out of the way, this is the course that I'm working on, and in today's video we're going to be looking at how to create a project, how to set up some packaging settings, how I organize my folder structure. Probably one of the most important things is setting up and using a GitHub repo, so that you're able to restore your assets if your project crashes and won't open. That'll save you a massive headache, and making it simple as well, because if you're like me and you're predominantly have an artistic brain, some of this like source control stuff can get a little bit confusing and overwhelming. So all of this stuff that I'm going to be showing you here today is going to be from the perspective of basically feeling like an artist, and like you don't want to spend too much time dabbling in complicated shit. We're going to talk about integrating plugins to your project, making your own reusable plugins so that you can future-proof them and basically reuse them for future projects. There's nothing worse than like doing a bunch of work for one of your games and then having the systems be not that modular and not that easily reusable, and then having to like basically redo them all for a future project. So by doing your content in plugins, you can A, make sure that you're organized, and B, allow yourself to reuse that content for future projects. We're just going to touch on that today, but I'll do that more in depth in another video. We're going to package it, and then I'm going to show you how to push it to Steam. So without any more ado, let's crack into it. So once you're on this screen, click Games and then choose your template. I usually just go third person project, and then basically I'm just going to call this what do we call it? First indie game course. That's the course that this video is going to be from, and if you're interested in that, like I said, there will be links to that in the description when it's released. So now that that's opened up, the first thing that I usually do, so let's go through the packaging settings. Even this isn't typically the first thing that I do, but we might as well, because this is sort of important. Basically, what I like to do whenever I start a new project is essentially get it ready to be playable like as soon as possible. And I'm a big fan of minimum viable products, which is something that I'll talk about in this course, where basically I just want a playable game absolutely as soon as possible. I want something that I can package and something that I can give to people and then watch them play it, so that then I can get feedback and also like validation, watching people play and watching them have fun, so that then I can go and iterate and solve problems and further improve on the game. And in order to do that, to have that rapid iteration cycle where you're able to rapidly improve on your project, you need to have something playable, and you need to have a stable and like tidy Unreal Engine project where it's not going to give you a bunch of errors when you go to package the game, and then you're stuck for weeks trying to figure out what the fuck's going on and like rewriting your code and whatever. So I set everything up at the start. I package regularly, package often, package quickly, and iterate. So the first things that I do, you can fill out all of this shit here, like with the name and the project thumbnail and whatever. That's not important for me just yet. Basically, the first thing that I want to do, obviously you need to set up your maps and whatever, but the thing that I'm interested in showing you at the moment is supported platforms. I turn all these off except for Windows, and just whatever you're going to be packaging for. You can chuck in an intro movie into there, but what I wanted to show you specifically, which is not commonly talked about, is down in packaging and then advanced. This is where you want to include your list of maps, and I'm going to show you an easy way to do this. So exclude editor content while cooking is what you want, and then list of maps to include in package build. So just down here, if we say create a new folder, which I'm going to call first indie game course. This is how I like to organize my folders, by the way. Usually I put another folder here which I'll call template, and then put that all in template, and then that might take a second, but basically I like to have one folder here for all of the stuff that I've created, like my blueprints and assets and stuff that I've imported. That's everything that I've handcrafted, like for the game. Then I'll have this template stuff, which is the everything that's, I'm just going to quickly highlight these, update redirector references, and then I should be able to delete that. Yep. I like to have template, which is everything that comes with the template, so this map here and your third person character and everything, and then all the rest of the folders in here will just be stuff that you've imported from the Epic Marketplace. Like I would have mentioned in the course by now, is that using these assets is a great way to save time. It's a great way to give form to your project and to get going with something easy. And I highly suggest that you use them because they save a lot of time. Whether you want to use the art ones or whether you want to use blueprint assets, I think they're a great resource. And there are some gems in the free for the month, so they get imported into here. They're all gonna go there. There's gonna be heaps of those usually for your projects. There's always heaps in mine, or in here, sorry, in content. They're gonna be all through here. And then what I like to do for my game project, I like to add that to my favorites, and then just set a color for it, so that then down here I can easily see it and I can easily access it in here. So anyway, first thing that I'm going to do is I create one for blueprints. Usually I'm going to create one for maps, and then I usually have some other ones. I might have one for assets, I might have one for like the main menu, like etc, etc. But for maps, basically what we're going to do is we're just going to create a new basic map, and I'm just going to, just for the demonstration purposes, I'm just going to call this my map. So this might be the main map that the game is on, and say you might have level transitions between a bunch of different maps. Like you might have say for example 4 different maps. They've all got a bunch of different assets in them, and you want them to all be included in the packaged maps here. Basically the reason that you fill out this section here is to tell the game which maps you want to include in the package, so that it doesn't spit you out a 16 gigabyte game when there's only like a gigabyte of like actual map data in the game. So instead of adding these all manually one by one, what I like to do is I like to add a new level, and I just call this level list, or like master list or something like that. And then we open up the level list, we go up to levels in the tab up the top, and if you don't have that, you can go window and then levels, so you get that. And then what I like to do is I just highlight all those, drop them in there, and then we don't even need this level anymore. We don't actually even need to look at it. It's just that now that all those levels are sub-levels inside that tab, and now we go into packaging here, list of maps to include in package build, we have to navigate to it. And so now I don't think you can highlight them all. So yeah, this is the reason that you go level list. And now that that's included, all those maps are going to be included in the package build, and it's going to save you a bunch of memory space. So that's what I like to do to get set up. A couple of other things, you can leave that on development if you want. I usually put it to shipping, and I usually tick distribution. Yeah. And then so when you want to package the game, you just go up here and then Windows, whatever, package project, and then you just choose where to package it. Usually what I do in here is I go packages, so indie game course packages, and then I put it in there, and then it'll package the game in there. So that's that setup. Let me just show you, before I go to the next section, some other things that I like to do, not in the project settings but in the editor settings. This is just to keep things organized. I like to have the asset location in the main menu, so it's not popping up new windows all the time whenever I create a blueprint. So for example, if we create a BP dummy blueprint here, you can see that it opens up in the tab up there, so you can easily navigate through them. And then one more thing that I like to do is just the comment bubbles. So the comment bubbles are default. You can't read them when you zoomed out. I like to have them readable because it helps me understand my code. So for example, like stuff here, I want to be able to read that from all the way. I want to be able to read that from all the way out. Personal preference. But yeah, it's important to comment your code, because otherwise it can get insanely difficult to keep track of what does what later down the line. So now basically what I want to get done, and what I suggest that you do, is basically to set up a GitHub repo like straight away, because you never know when you're going to introduce something that causes your project to crash, and it's always great to have that resource there so that you can roll back and back it up. In the past I haven't done that. I've just kept hard copies of things, and it's always been such a pain in the ass whenever I, for example, can't get the project to open, because when you can't even get the project to open, it's like, well, you can't do anything. Like, you can't just easily undo your changes. So it's always good to have that option to roll back. So to do that, I'm going to put links in the description for GitHub and GitHub Desktop. That's the little icon down here. This is the one that I like to use because I don't like using the command line, or whatever the fuck it's called, where you've got to like type shit and give it prompts and whatever. Like, I just find it way too confusing, whereas this is so much more intuitive and it's simple, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works. But anyway, so once you've got this, install that and open it up. You're going to go File, New Repository, and I'm going to call this First Indie Game Course. Can give it a description if you want. Does it need a README? Probably not. Select a path for it. That's fine. My Unreal Engine projects are there. Now the gitignore, you want to set this to Unreal Engine, and this is going to prevent GitHub from backing up unnecessary stuff that doesn't need to be backed up. Because if it tries to back up everything every single time you do a new commit, what's called a commit, it just ends up just being unnecessarily big, and you don't want that. Do you need a license? Probably not. Create repository. So now already up here, you can see these are my projects that I've got going at the moment. I've got Sentient Metal, Monad, and RRM4. So they're projects that I'm currently working on. You can navigate to your project there. So First Indie Game Course, and this is where you can do your commit history. Now, if I navigate to my Unreal Engine folder here, so my C drive and then Unreal Engine, that's where I created the repo. When I clicked new repo, that's this local path here. If I navigate to that now, you can see that we've got this folder here, but there's nothing in it. So what I'm going to do, have I closed my engine? I've closed my engine. What I want to do is go to my project folder. So that is, where's my project folder? I think it'd be Documents, Unreal Projects for me, and then yeah, here are all my other Unreal projects. This is where they're created by default and not necessarily on GitHub. This is where I created it when I clicked the Launch Engine button up there. And so it's First Indie Game Dev Course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the content from inside of that, I'm going to cut that, and then I'm going to go over to the one that I created, the GitHub repo that I've created. You can tell that it's worked because it's got a little tick there, and then I'm just going to paste everything inside there. I think that worked, so it looks like we've got everything. And so now if I go back to GitHub here, you can see we've got all these changes, and they're all got this little plus icon. That's telling me that a bunch of stuff has been added to the repository. So I'm going to write down here, I'm going to call this init, and then I'm going to say added project files. Basically give it a description so I can keep track of what's done, and that'll probably take a minute. So I'm going to pause that and come back in just a moment. Okay, so it looks like that's done. All the changes are gone now, and if you click the history, this is when the thing was created, the repo was created, and then init here is when all of this stuff was now committed to the repo. So now to show you how to do commits and things, first I want to reopen my project. I wonder if I can get to that from here somehow. Show an Explorer. Yeah, so this is the project here, so I can relaunch the project now. And just while that's opening, if we open the gitignore here in Notepad or whatever the fuck this is, Notepad++. Down the bottom here, I'm just going to add a hash for comment, and I'm going to call this Jackson's added lines. And then I'm just going to include packages / and then asterisk for wildcard. And basically you can see in this gitignore that it's ignoring intermediate files, it's ignoring plugins, intermediate files, it's ignoring anything in the derived data cache. Basically the asterisk is just a wildcard. So basically I want it to ignore my packages. I don't want to back up my packages every single time I do a new commit. So I'm just adding that there. And now if I close that, go back to GitHub, you can see that I've made changes. So I'm just going to say ignoring packages and just control enter to commit that. So now just to show you how GitHub works so that you feel safe and confident backing up your stuff, I'm just going to create a new blueprint in here. I'm just going to call it BP GitHub backup. It's just an actor, and basically inside this maybe I'll just say delay and it's gonna just like print a string or something. But anyway, so now if I go to GitHub, you can see that I've created that asset there. So I'm gonna make a new commit, created asset, and then say for example I accidentally deleted that asset one day and didn't mean to, then, or say that asset got corrupt. It's like we've got that change here, and say I even committed that. Say I made a new commit, maybe I was working on something else and didn't realize that I'd fucked that up, and then I wanted to revert back to having that asset. See, it's not in the project right now, but if I wanted to revert back to having that asset, the first thing that I would do is probably close the engine just in case, because I don't feel like it's probably good to switch between these while the engine's open. And I'm going to isolate the one that I want to revert to, so this one here, created asset, and then I think if I say checkout commit, it'll create a detached head and you'll no longer be on any branch. That's fine. So now you can see up here what we've got is it says detached head on blah 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 blah, and basically if I now reopen my project, we're going to have that asset again back in the content browser. So basically the point here, there it is, and you can see I've still got my code inside it, and then I can change that around and maybe add another one that does something else. And now say if I close that again, go back to my GitHub desktop, you can see that I've made these changes here. I'm just going to say added print string and then commit that again. We're still on a detached head. I'll figure out what to do about that in just a second. But basically the point is that if you commit often, you've got all of these backups here that you can revert to if something goes wrong. And stuff does go wrong, like shit just breaks in Unreal Engine all the time through no fault of your own, and often you don't know until it's too late, and then suddenly you can't get your engine open. And so it's good to have these to revert back to and to salvage data from. I'm going to link another video in the description where I talked about how I recovered one of my projects by isolating and then removing and then replacing what was essentially a broken blueprint that had broken from a structure inside it. And so basically what I did is in each commit there was a bunch of things that had changed, but I managed to isolate which one was the problematic asset, cut that out of the project, and then restore the project to basically the latest commit, where it was working and it was opening, and then I could just redo that one asset rather than having to redo the whole commit. So I hope that makes sense, but basically having these different versions is very helpful, because even worst case you can just roll back to one that you know worked, and then maybe you've lost like a day or like a few hours of work, which is fine. So commit often and save yourself a massive headache. So basically once you've got that detached head up there, and you know that this is a stable version of your project, so your main is the one where you might have deleted something by accident, you've got this detached head now which has been it's one of the main branches but checked out where it was last stable. I'm gonna have to do that again because the detached head's already gone. Say you wanted to keep this and make this your new main branch, you just click new branch, and then I'm just gonna call this what could I call it? I could just call it main 2. It's my new main basically. And so now I know that this is the corrupt one, and then this is the one where I've rolled it back and I've fixed it. I think there's a way to, yeah, you could probably delete the old one, and then this one would become your new main. Or sometimes backing this stuff up, it's not always just as straightforward as like rolling back to the last good commit. Sometimes what you want to do is salvage some data from the corrupt branch, or the corrupt the corrupt branch. So say in this last commit, say that was the corrupted asset or whatever, but there was a bunch of other stuff that I also worked on that I want to migrate to this new branch that I'm going to be working on from now on. Basically what I can do to salvage that is I can go to the main branch here, and then that's automatically going to update the files inside of my project here. Basically whenever you switch the branch here, your Explorer is automatically updating the files that are in the project. And so what you can do is, if there's stuff in your main branch or your old branch that you want to salvage, you can select it, come in here, copy it. You can't cut it, you have to copy it, and then you could just paste that on a place like your desktop, and then switch to the new branch that you want to copy that information into, and then you can cut it from your desktop, go to your file explorer, and then say paste it in here. The reason that you can't cut it directly and that you need to go to the desktop or somewhere in between is because when you're changing branches like this, say you cut an asset from the main branch and then try to put it in the main branch too, it's going to try and read an asset that no longer exists, because switching branches actually deletes assets and replaces assets, and so it can't actually access the one that you wanted to copy. So that's how you do backups. It's sort of that's just a brief overview. If you want to publish it online, you can click this as well, and then you can have a backup which is on the cloud. I don't even bother with that. There's an extra step that you have to do if you've got files over 100 megabytes. You need to set up what's called Git LFS, and I learned how to do that once, but to be honest, like I don't use that many big assets, and so I haven't worried about it. Or even if I do use big assets, I just keep them locally on my computer. It's just an easy way for me to keep backups, and I don't have to worry about paying for file storage and shit like that. So yeah, that's me. You can do what you want, and if you have trouble with this, obviously, like, shout out in the Discord as well, and we can give you a hand with it, because there's nothing scarier than having your project become corrupt, and sometimes this stuff can be sort of tricky to navigate, especially if you're new to it. So yeah, yell out if you need help. And so the next thing that we're going to do, now that we've talked a little bit about backing up your stuff, is about integrating plugins. Basically, the game development loop, as far as I'm concerned, is all that stuff about setting up your project. That's sort of like boilerplate. Then what you do is you integrate plugins, import assets from the asset store, and then spend time like developing your game. But as long as it's ready to be packaged, basically you can go around and around in these steps here: integrating plugins, making plugins, developing your own content. You can go around and around on those 3 steps for as long as you want, and basically at any point, as long as you've set everything else up correctly, you're ready to leave that cycle, package the game, and then push it to Steam. So we'll do that in just a moment. But basically what I'm going to show you now is just how to do plugins so that you can reuse your code for future projects. So to integrate a plugin, I've got some of these on my store. These are going to be 50% off for anybody who's in the course. But basically I'm going to be publishing a bunch of these as I continue to work on my own projects, so that you can use them in your own games if you want to speed up the development process. Basically I reuse a lot of the same shit from project to project. So for this example, like in my Sentient Metal project, I've got a system for dialogue in there, which I've used in a previous game. I've got this one called Jackson's Games, which is a bunch of like menus, like a main menu, some widgets and navigation and things like that. I've got this one here called the Music Manager, which is available on Gumroad if you want that already. But basically all of these things, I reuse these from project to project to project to project, and it is like so easy to just copy it in and like to package the game and be like ready to go. And so like I highly suggest that you do as much content as possible, reusable content in the form of plugins, because you can just reuse them. And so to show you how to add that to your project, if you just copy it from wherever you downloaded it from, or from one of your older projects, if you go to content here, and then if I right click on something and say show an explorer, yeah, we've got our first indie game course here. If we add a new folder here, which we'll call plugins, and then just copy that into here, Jackson's Music Manager, go to plugins. I don't think it'll show up yet, but I've got some other ones in here anyway, so I could just enable this one here, for example, and then just restart the engine. And then once you restart the engine, basically they're ready to go. So, you know, plugins are obviously super handy. And whenever you add new stuff like that as well, sometimes plugins can fuck with your project a bit if they're like the wrong engine version or whatever. So just commit the changes. So imported music manager. Oh my god, if I could fucking spell, that'd be great. Import music manager plugin to branch 2. So that's doing its thing. Great. So now if you go down to your plugins folder, you can see that there's the music manager plugin content here. So if I click on maps, you see we've got this demo map in here, and I can run around and whatever. It's not playing any music at the moment. It should be playing music, but I've got to activate this first, I think. So if I click that, yeah, and basically it's got a low pass filter when I walk under that, and some other overlap events. So yeah, that's how you import a plugin. And then if you want to make your own plugins, that's also very easy. So this is how you do it. You go plugins, you go add plugin, content only, give it a name. Let's just call this first indie plugin. Put your name there, Jackson, give it a description if you want, and then just click create. And then basically down in your plugins folder down here, you've got your first indie plugin content, and you can create whatever you want. So, you know, what if, say you wanted to make a blueprint which was like a dialogue, I don't know, like a character or a character component or something. You can do whatever you want in there, and then you can then copy this and move that to other projects. Another little tip, for example, so say if you've got a game that you've worked on in the past, and it's already got like some fleshed out system in there that you wanted to turn into a plugin to then move to a new project, but say like the dependencies of it are like all through your content folders. Like say for example in here, we just created these assets, these blueprints here. We've got our blueprint dummy just here, but say this blueprint dummy was referencing all kinds of other stuff, and it wasn't just a simple matter of just dragging and dropping that to the plugin like that. Even though this is what you've got to do, basically you want to just move all your content to a plugin or copy it to a plugin, and then you can then distribute that plugin to different projects. If you can't easily track all the dependencies, so like if you look in the reference viewer, these will be connected to all the things that it's dependent on. And also if you click on migrate, it'll also give you a list of all the things that it's dependent on and that need to be migrated with it. Basically to catch all of that, you can migrate this to an empty project with nothing in it, and that'll take all the dependencies to that project, and then basically you can build the plugin in that project. So in other words, say if I migrated all of the stuff to the content folder here, basically I know that nothing in there is relevant, nothing in there is relevant, all the rest of the folders are going to be relevant to that plugin. I can just copy them all, excluding these three, copy all the folders that are relevant, and then just move them to the plugin content, and then basically this is ready to distribute to other projects. So that's how I do it. I use an empty project as like a middleman, and then I can then distribute that plugin to all my other projects. So that's how you do that. And just a couple of other things for organization. So with your new plugin here, obviously you want to keep your folders all organized. You can have blueprints, you can have maps or whatever. That's how I've done it for the music manager. I've got assets where I keep all the music. I've got blueprints where I've got the main volume here, which chooses the track, has a bunch of settings for the low pass filter, and if you want the low pass filter to play when you're indoors, when you're swimming, or shit like that. And then I've got some other blueprints like this one over here, which is an override volume, which is, it temporarily changes the music when you overlap the volume. It's like you could use it for battle music, for example. But basically I have a folder for all that sort of stuff, and then obviously one for the maps as well, so you keep it organized. But then basically if you want to do more info for your plugin, you can right click it, go to plugin, and then edit. You can give it an icon, you can give it a version name so you can keep track of the versions. Like if you make updates to it, you don't want to copy an older version of the plugin over a newer version in a new project and accidentally overwrite a bunch of data. So it's good to update the version name every time you make a change. You can give it a category so that they're easy to sort. So that's handy, because in this one here, I've got my Jackson's plugin tab, which that's my category, and they all get added to that. So this one's called other because we haven't given it a category, but it's easy for me to find my stuff, because if I just go all plugins and then type in Jackson's, all of these other ones, apart from the music manager, are actually in my engine itself. They're not inside any specific project, but they're all just easy to find if you name them like that. But yeah, so if you wanted to edit some of the other information here, you go plugin and then edit, give it a description created by, you can put your name in there, full name or whatever, put a link to like the documentation, if it's on the marketplace, your Discord server for support. Inside the documentation, I like to keep track of where the latest version of the plugin is as well. So on my computer, for example, I have my music manager plugin in a bunch of different projects, but whichever one I'm currently working on, if I make updates to that music manager plugin, I'm obviously going to increase the version name there, and then basically inside of my docs, I will put like a little note at the bottom which will say like latest version 1.1 location like Sentient Metal Machine, or whatever of my projects the plugin is in. So that way, whenever I look to add that plugin to a new project, I can easily find where the latest version is, go into the content folder of that project, just copy the plugin there, and then paste it into the new project. So that's how I keep track of all my plugins, and that's where you can edit. This is where you can edit all your information for your plugins. You can also add dependencies down there as well. One of the common ones that I have is I have a plugin, I have a function library which has like all of this stuff that I use all the time, like different maths, vector math, and just different stuff for quality of life. And so oftentimes my other plugins reference functions from that plugin. So it's good to include those dependencies there, because then the engine will spit an error at you if you try to use, say, the music manager plugin without the functions plugin, for example. And so that helps you just identify what's missing and why your project might not be working. So I think that might be it for plugins. So let's leave that there. And then so the last thing to do is to just get the game like packaging, which is pretty easy. Like I said at the start, there's a bunch of extra stuff you can add in here, like a logo, project name, etc., project version. But the main thing that you probably want to do is just set up the editor startup maps. I wonder if I could get us in the music manager map to start with. So this will be the game that the map loads up on begin play, and this by default is included in that list of maps that are packaged in the game. So you set all your stuff in here, which I'm not going to go into, like your game mode and whatever. But basically, once you've got a startup map, once you've got your maps in the list here, I'm actually not even sure if you need that option there, so I might even just untick that and see what happens. And once you've got your supported platforms there, you're basically ready to package. So we can go ahead, hit package project. It's giving me a funny location. It doesn't know where we are. But yeah, if I go any games course packages, I'm going to package it into there, and I'm just going to give that a minute. Okay, so that's done. It worked. If it didn't work, obviously you go through the logs on your own game. You can send them to the private server that will be available for the people in this course, and you can get help with what's going on there. Maybe roll back to a previous version of the project. But basically, once that's packaged, you've got a game which you can distribute. It might not be pretty, it might not be done, but like, look, man, like it's a game. It's playable, and you've got a healthy project. Oh my god, I can't quit it because I didn't add escape controls. I didn't add quit game controls. Look, yeah, basically that's something that you can send to people now. You can zip that folder up, you can put that on itch, or you can put it up on Steam. Basically, as long as you've got this healthy project, you've got your organization in the form of your plugins and in the form of your folder structure in your project, and you can do regular packages without errors. You've got a GitHub backup. As you can see here in the changes, it doesn't have the packages because we include the we included the tag in the gitignore to not include the packages, so you're not going to have excessive baggage in here. But basically I could commit this and say packaged project and commit that. Like I said, better to do small commits and do them often. But yeah, look, you've got everything set up now, and so you've got a game and it's ready to send to people, and now you've just got to develop the content, which is the fun part. Like basically all this work that we've done up to this point is to basically create a container that is now safe for you to play in and experiment in, and not have to worry about losing your data, not have to worry about being stressed about your exit strategy. So like when it's time to publish the game, say you set yourself like a 12-week deadline, which is what I suggest for the course. I think 12 weeks is a good length of time for your first project. You can go more and you can go less, but yeah, once you're approaching that deadline and you're regularly packaging, then you have the security and like relaxation and certainty of knowing that you've got something ready to upload, and it's ready to go. So maybe that's what we'll do next. So yeah, once you've got your game, the only thing left for you to do is, if you wanted to publish to Steam or the Epic Game Store, is you just have to go to their website and then you just have to buy the product submission fee. So that's, for me, that's $150 Australian. And then basically once you submit that, you'll get access to a behind the scenes like store page and things, which I'm pretty sure I'm not actually allowed to show you. I think it's forbidden, so that's sort of a bummer. But basically you get an app ID in there, and once you've got your app ID, you can upload your project to Steam and you can release it. You can do your store page and whatever. If your project is smaller than 2 gigabytes, you can do it with just a zip file. So that's super easy. Basically already we have a packaged game here, which is how big? Less than 400 megabytes. So I could zip this, 7-zip, add to archive, blah, blah, blah. That's zipping it up. That's ready to go to Steam. And basically, once you have to do like a little bit of like fiddling with the page, which we can help you with in the server. But basically, you just configure it so that when somebody clicks play on the game on the Steam app, it just runs the executable and then they're basically in the game, and that's all there is to it. If your project, the packaged version of the game, is larger than 2 gigabytes, you have to use this tool here, which is called the SteamPipe Builder GUI user interface, whatever it is. And as you can see, I've got this set up for a project that I was uploading. What was I doing? I was doing Running Robot Man 4, so I was updating a new package of that. So basically, like, you put your app ID in, you give it a build description, you tell it where you want it to upload it to, and blah blah blah. There is a good tutorial for this, which I'm gonna link in the description. There's this young man on YouTube who, he had the only good tutorial which explained how to actually use this, because I was so fucking confused, and all the Steam documentation is like absolutely terrible. So I'm gonna link that, shout him out, and if you just follow his tutorial, it's like five minutes long. Basically, he shows you how to populate all of these. He shows you how to do it all, and then you just click upload, and then basically you log into your Steam thing and your game's on Steam. So that's how that works. That's all of it. That's the basics of how to set up your project to develop and release an indie game. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a course that I'm offering, which is going to be designed around finishing your first indie game, basically. It's not released yet, but there will be a link below if you want to drop me your email and be notified when it's released. But it's going to be for experienced devs, new devs, artists, just anybody who's interested in making a game that they're passionate about. And it's going to walk you through solidifying the vision, helping you figure out what it is exactly that is attractive to you in a game and what it is that you want to make. It's helping you decide on a project that's meaningful to you and getting very clear about what that is so that you can stay motivated throughout the course. We talk a lot about motivation, how to stay motivated, how to stay healthy, how to stay sane, how to get the support that you need. And obviously a big part of it as well is going to be access to a private Discord channel where you're going to be able to chat with other people who are in the same boat, doing the same course, troubleshooting problems together, sharing your work, getting some of that accountability as well, and getting that like positive mirroring from each other and from me as well, as you share your work and get feedback and get encouragement, basically. Something which I talk about in the course is, you know, there are some places that are safe and some people that are safe to share with, and there are other people who aren't. And in a field like game development, there's a lot of self-doubt, I think, especially among indies, and it's very easy to compare yourself to like AAA projects, for example, and feel like you're not a good developer, or worry that you're doing things wrong, or maybe you shared your work and got a bunch of criticism and nobody said anything good about it, for example. They're all very common stories, man, and I've been through a lot of that. And so what I want to do with this course is give you all the frameworks and sort of psychological tools to prepare yourself for a game and actually finishing a game, making sure that you can plan it, it's reasonable, it's inspiring, and that you can stay the course and get through it so that you can publish it like I just showed you. But then also developing the community so that you've got the emotional support and, like I said, the mirroring of people who believe in you, and you've got people you can go to with your problems, people who know you, people who have got history with you, and not just randoms on the internet. And so you can be there for each other, and you can share assets, and I can share assets with you as well, and we can all support each other and do work together. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, there's going to be a link in the description, so you can drop me your email and I'll send you that course when it's ready. But yeah, I hope this video was helpful. If it was, like, leave me a comment and a like and a subscribe and all that, because that helps the channel. But yeah, peace out.